Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick, and in this video we're going to be talking through our favourite set of running gloves. Now, a few of the Run Testers have each picked out one or two pairs that they use regularly and have done for a few years in many cases. This is out of all the gloves we've tested, so you know you're getting a pretty solid pair of gloves here. We'll also talk about why we like them, what kind of conditions we use them for, and why we'd recommend them. So, on to the gloves.
My go-to, the only pair of running gloves I actually regularly run with every winter, I swear by them, are the Tracksmith Inverno gloves. They're £32, $32. They come in 4 different colourways and 2 different sizes, small, medium, and then large, extra large. And I just love these gloves. They are lightweight enough that you don't have to take them off. I've never had that awful where your palms feel really sweaty and you have to take them off after your warm up, and then you have to carry them and not lose one every time you get your phone out. Never had that problem with these. You can comfortably wear them for the entire run because they are lightweight, they are breathable, but they're still warm in the winter when it's really cold. They're still warm. They're really soft against the skin, so when you're wiping your nose, maybe that's gross, maybe that's just me, but when you're wiping your nose in the winter, you're not going to be left with really red scratchy marks on your face from them. And they have the tech fingers here and the thumb, so that you can swipe up. It's still difficult to text, it's always difficult to text wearing gloves, but you can swipe up and you can use your phone screen or your watch screen with these on without having to take them off. They fit really nicely. I've washed them loads, I've had them for years. I've got 2 pairs in case I ever lose a pair, and I just love these gloves. They've got the little Tracksmith logo on the wrist. From with these gloves, luckily never lost one of these gloves because I would be distraught, and I have bought them for every runner I know as a Christmas present because I absolutely love them, and they've got the little Tracksmith logo on, so they look great. So these are my go-tos.
Now at £45, I know you might look at the price and think £45 for a pair of gloves, you've absolutely lost your mind, but hear me out for a second, because this isn't just one pair of gloves, it's actually a 3-in-1 glove mitt mashup that basically covers a lot of different levels of cold where you might have to have 2 or 3 pairs of gloves. The gloves are thin with a second skin fit, and they can be used on their own when you need just a little bit of extra protection, so that's good for just moving into the autumn months. But they come with a detachable waterproof running mitt that gives you some optional lightweight waterproof protection over the top for when you're running in wet conditions, or you just wanted a bit of boosted warmth in the cold. You can also use these mitts, they've got thumbs, use the mitts for lightweight water protection on their own. So you've got 3 different options to flex. Now the mitts have stretchable sort of wrist loops, so there's less chance of losing them. You can get them on and off pretty quick, and they're really light and packable. The mitts actually stash into a pocket at the top of the gloves, though it's not that comfy when you do that. You get a little bit of a lump here. But it's okay if you need to switch to just you want to run with gloves without detaching the mitts. The cuffs on these are really nice and soft, and they stay in place. They sort of hold really well. There are some silicone grips on the index fingers as well, and the thumb, which is good for holding on to stuff like running poles. But overall, what I really like about these is the fact that you can flex up and down and use them through various different sort of months and different temperatures. So yeah, that's an option. Now when it comes to the New Balance team knitted gloves, there's no bells and whistles here. These are just a cheap, simple but effective pair of sort of classic sort of woolen feel gloves. They're all about that old school kind of woolen feeling comfort. They're nice and thick, but they're really flexible, unrestrictive. They take the edge nicely off all but the coldest temperatures. I wouldn't use them when it gets close to 0. I don't get enough protection. I get a bit of rain odds, so I need more than that. But most UK autumn and winter runs, they'll do a good job. And you can still do stuff with them when they're on, like unzip pockets. There are also some smartphone textured pads on the swipey fingers, though I still sort of find they're a little bit hit and miss, so I always take my gloves off when I'm using them. But overall, nice big thick cuffs as well. They'll sit under a jacket nice and easy, and I think they're currently on sale at under a tenner, so they're pretty cheap as well. They're gloves that you don't necessarily mind too much if you lose them. I lose my gloves a lot, so that's a more simple option.
My first pick is the Nathan Hypernight Convertible Mitt gloves, reflective. The word reflective is in there as well. There's too many words in the name, but these are really good gloves. These are the ones that I use day in, day out throughout the winter. They're pretty warm gloves. I have very cold hands. I tend to get chilblains. My hands get really cold in the winter. So even when it starts dropping below single digits Celsius, that is, I pop these on, and I'll use them in the kind of glove form for the first few weeks, and as it gets colder, or if I'm running into a cold wind or something like that, you can pop on the outer layer as well for that extra bit of warmth. Got all those reflective details on there, which will help with visibility in low light conditions. The gloves have your classic touchscreen working panels on the fingertips, and then silicone bits to make sure your phone doesn't slip out of your hand the moment you pull it out of your pocket, and a nice soft bit on the outside of the thumb there, which you can use to basically wipe your nose on the run. These are pretty warm gloves, like I say. They work through the winter for me pretty much, apart from when it gets really cold. If it drops below zero or very close to zero, or it's really wet, I will pop on another set of gloves I'll talk about in a second, but for the most part these gloves will see me through winter. I really like having that convertible ability to them. The mitten just feels so much warmer. They cost £30 or $35, which is reasonably expensive, but not crazy expensive for something you can use day in, day out for a few years, and I have noticed that they do drop in sales fairly regularly as well. So that's the Nathan Hypernight reflective convertible mitts. Nathan reflective, those gloves, all those words. There'll be a caption. My second pick for gloves is the Montane Prism Dryline Waterproof Mitts. These are kind of gloves of last resort, and that's reflected in the price because they are very expensive. They're £70 or $90. They're almost more hiking gloves really in how thick they are, but these are the gloves I turn to when it's really, really cold and I need to protect my hands. And basically thin running gloves aren't cutting it anymore. So they are really pricey. Not one I'd recommend if you've got reasonably warm hands because they do get sweaty, but if you do have very cold hands like me, get chilblains, just really want that extra protection, these are a fantastic option. They're waterproof, they're fleece lined, they're really cozy, really comfy. I really like using these, especially actually on things like trail runs where you're, especially in the winter, like I go and run in the hills in Scotland sometimes, and you're coming down very steep hills, and actually you can't really run down them because it's a bit icy, and you're going slowly, your body temperature starts to drop, the wind's hitting you, and my hands get absolutely freezing. This is the kind of time when these gloves come in really handy, or in general when it's sub-zero, very wet, cold rain, icy wind, that kind of thing. I go for the nuclear option of these very, very thick, very enjoyable gloves. So they're fleece lined and cozy. They do pack up quite easily, which is quite handy if you do find on a run that they're too warm. You can also slip them on over another glove, so you can wear these over the Nathan gloves I use, and as an extra layer if you really need it, and then take them off and pop them in a backpack or even a pocket if you can shove them in there. So they are expensive, they are really warm, they won't work for lots of runners, but if you're in really cold conditions or have very cold hands, sometimes it's worth investing in a really, really thick pair of waterproof gloves like this, which you can then use actually in the rest of your life. These are the gloves I use every day for everything, so it's not like they're just a running glove investment, but they are very useful when it's really cold on your runs.
So there's three things I look for in a good pair of running gloves. The first thing is they need to be small, they need to be packable, and also it's a nice little bonus if you are still able to still use your phone and also interact with your watch as well through the gloves. That's mainly because I like really wearing them at the first few kilometers of my run. I take them off and then I want them at the back at the end of my run when I'm all done. Now, in terms of the first pair I'm going to pick, it is these gloves here. These are the Soar winter gloves. Now, what I like about these gloves, first and foremost, they are nice and small, so it ticks that first box. They are very packable as well, whether I'm going to put them in my jacket pockets, or whether it's in the same pocket or whether it's in two pockets, but it also fits inside my running belt as well too. It's just enough in terms of that thickness. It's a kind of nice small glove that I like. It is enough in terms of warmth, but it's not overly thick, which is not something that I would be looking for. But I also like that you do have the ability to kind of use or kind of interact with your phone and your touchscreen through the kind of surfaces that you're getting, or the kind of extra grippier surface you're getting on these gloves. But ultimately, I think there are better gloves designed for kind of, giving you that functionality. But ultimately, they're small, light, very packable, offer enough warmth, and I think they're good enough to kind of do long training runs, also do some kind of sprint work and speed work as well. That's my first pick. They are the Soar winter running gloves. So my second running glove pick are these. These are the North Face ETIP gloves. Now, unlike the Soar gloves that I mentioned, these are a little bit bigger. They are still pretty packable. I would say if I'm taking these and I need to put them away, it's normally going in the kind of side kind of jacket pockets I have, as opposed to my running belt, which I think they're not heavy, but they do feel a little bit bulkier in there ultimately. Now, what I like about these gloves, apart from the fact that they are just about the right size, not too big, not too bulky, I do like the fact that you get a big surface area, and that's really what the ETIP gloves are about in terms of letting you interact and use your phone if you need to use it. What I also like, and what I found best with these gloves, is if I want to use or interact with my watch, which obviously, and these watches now have touchscreen displays. I use the Garmin Forerunner 965 that has a touchscreen, and these are the gloves I found work best in terms of interacting with my watch, or kind of my go-to watch at the moment. A nice little thing I also like is, like socks, I'm really bad at keeping gloves together. The North Face ones have just simple clips, so you can just clip them together chuck them in your kind of, you know, drawer, and they're a bit easier to find when you need to kind of locate them for that colder run. So that is my second running glove pick, and those are the North Face ETIP gloves.
My pick for gloves is the Sealskinz Gissing waterproof all-weather lightweight glove. There's a lot of words in that. They've also got fusion control in the title as well. Now, these gloves aren't necessarily running gloves. What I find a lot of the time with running gloves is they tend to be quite thin. It's quite cold in the UK at the moment, and when I'm going for an easy run, really thin, lightweight running gloves aren't really doing the job. So what I tend to use is these pretty much all the time when it gets really cold. They're quite thick, but they're still relatively lean to wear. They're not like massive gloves. They do a fantastic job at keeping your hands warm. They're completely windproof. They're waterproof, so really good in the British winter when it's getting really wet and rainy. They've got a little connector that fits the two gloves together so you don't lose them, and they've got touch sensitivity on the fingertips and thumb tip as well, which works very well. So if you're the sort of runner that gets really cold hands when you're out running, especially if you're doing those easy runs where you're not really getting your heart rate up too high and sweating, I definitely wouldn't use this if I was doing an interval session or a race or anything like that. But for those long, easy runs in the cold, definitely when I'm on Brighton seafront and it's almost storm conditions, these are absolutely fantastic. Keep your hands really warm and just perfect for everything I need. Also double as very good normal gloves as well. So a lot of the running gloves I've got I would never use for walking around in if it was cold. These ones are just great gloves that you can use for running. So well worth taking a look if you're the sort of runner that gets very cold hands.